Hi, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Projectiology Bridge Book Club. Tonight, we are joined by facilitators Isabel Ulicea and Juliana Remedios. So first, just a few reminders that we will be recording the first part of the meeting. And depending how many participants we have, we may do some breakout sessions. So we'll stop the recording. And then we'll start the recording again when we present the technique for the month and close out the meeting. So during the meeting, feel free to raise your hand, use the hand function in Zoom, or if you want to say something or ask a question, you can use the chat function or just simply unmute yourself and start speaking. So now we'd like to present our facilitators of this meeting. Isabella Ulicea is joining us. She's originally from Brazil and has been living in Finland since 2011 and has been collaborating with Conscientiology in the international community since then. She has a degree in communication and a postgraduate degree in information systems management. Isabel has been a Penta practitioner since 2014, a teacher of Conscientiology since 2016, and a volunteer for the International Association for Interassistential Parapsychism since 2021. So welcome, Isabel. We also have Juliana Remedios. She's graduated in medicine with a specialty in internal medicine and clinical oncology. She is a Brazilian. She was born in Rio de Janeiro and has been a Conscientiology volunteer since 2004, a teacher of Conscientiology since 2007, a Penta practitioner since 2008, and a consciential therapist since 2007. So big welcome to our facilitators, and I'll hand it over to you.
So guys, first of all, I want to say that if if you have some questions, please just interrupt me, because sometimes I can see everybody there. Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with you. And we are going to keep going with this study of the projectiology. We are going through these chapters today, 447 until 460. And there are a lot of chapters. And one thing that I think it's really in this part of the book, the chapters are pretty much independent. So I'll try to bring what I think is the most important point in each chapter, but I think I brought some information that we can discuss. It's pretty interesting. Okay. Well, the first chapter is the factor. Oh, sorry, I think we missed one. No, it's correct. First chapter is about the factors that unfavor the lucid projection. Well, first of all, the lucid projector is easier, as we see so far in the previous chapters, when you have this relaxation, the body relaxation, and also a state of mind that is focused, or at least open state of mind. And it's easier when you start or when you are sleeping, of course. And so in this chapter, Waldo Vieira brings a lot of situations that can difficult the projectability capacity. And basically, if you think about it, and each one of them will interfere in this situation, like the relaxation, your state of mind, or it will be harder to get to sleep. So it's basically like that. So he divided in 4 categories, 4 classes of things, like conscientiological, more like in a psychological way, somatic, it has to be with the physiology, physical, more related to the environment, the place where you are, and extra physical or parapsychic. So let's see some cause. For example, in the conscientiology cause that could make it difficult to get a projection, you can have, like, for example, a person that have worries, and for example, or even like obsessive ideas, like monotone scenes, or just the person could be just worried about the next day, a problem, a specific problem, something that is monopolizing her thoughts or his sanity. Could be, for example, some emotion, an emotion that is like overwhelming, for example, panic, anxiety, fear, that could be or could not be related specifically with the projection itself. So any kind of internal factor that can move your sanity from the projection, or hold your sanity, or it can make it difficult to do the project, to get the projection. About the somatic factors, could be anything really. For example, drinking alcohol, not well, don't sleep well, or have like constipation, any kind of digestive problems, or even when you are too excited about something. For example, sometimes you keep like talking or playing games and until late of the night, and then it's hard to conciliate the sleep. It's hard to sleep. That could be something that could make it harder to get a projection also, or maybe even remember it, to be honest. So there are a lot of factors. In the physical, mesological factors, we can even be like, if you don't have a quiet, nice place to sleep and do your projection. For example, if there is a place that it's people are coming and going and getting close to your body, or there is a lot of noise that you are not used to, even your clothes could be a factor that can difficult projection. For example, like tight clothes or uncomfortable clothes. And in the astrophysical, there's one of the most important ones is fear, that we are talking about that later and in a specific chapter. But fear, for example, for the projection, or not, fear of not being able to return to the new human body. Some people are really worried about the catalepsy, for example. Also, other factors, as intrusion. And one thing that I think it's interesting, and we tackle that in the next chapter too, is about sexual impulse or sexual need. Sometimes when you are not satisfied in the sexual area, that could make you more anxious to get this kind of energy that is missing. And sometimes when you go outside the body, your experiences are not so nice, and you connect with people that are also have this kind of hungry or this kind of desire, and that could be a little that could bring you a lot of situations that are not so good, like vampirizations and not so healthy situations, and that could interfere in your capacity of have a projection or remember it. Well, guys, the first chapter was pretty much that. And if you have questions, please ask me, okay? But I will keep going with with the next chapter. As I told you, the next chapter is the fear. I think the fear is an important limitation to get a projection or remember it. And the author here, Waldo Vieira, put a lot of data about that. Let's see what he said. I brought here his definition of fear. Of course, we all know that fear is a basic emotion, but I put it here on the slide because I would like to stress it, that could be related to a real threat or a real danger or imaginary threat, or even something from your memory, right? So sometimes your fear could be just related to something that you imagine or something that you don't know yet, but it's still fear and could really harm your capacity of project yourself. One thing that I thought that was really relevant that he said that in projectiology is that no one is immune to fear. It's an emotion that we all know. We all experience a lot of time during our life. And the most common fears that we have related to the projection are fear of death, fear of dark, fear of unknown, and fear of crowds. Actually, these are fears that are pretty common in general, but have this importance to us. They were relevant to us because of the projection. For example, fear of death. Some people don't understand what is happening, for example, during the projections, and they have fear that is related to death, or even that they could die during the projection. And especially, I also think that is really important the fear of unknown, because parapsychism and projections have a lot of new experience, and of course you must have some level of I think it's bravery and neophilia to experience all these situations. Well, of course, you have the author here brings different intensities of fears. Like, for example, you can be just insecure of your projections, or you can have like panic or even phobias, related phobias. For example, phobia of the dark, phobia of being alone, things like that that could be more limited. And here, the author, Waldo Vieira, brings, like, especially regard the lucid projection, some fears, some specific fears. For example, one that I think is pretty common, I heard a lot in consciential therapy, is not being able to return to a human body. Fear of the unknown, fear of when you confront like realities or situations that are not related to the interphysical reality. And the first time that you project yourself, and the shock and fear that some people can have about this strange or new experience. Fear about the projection be itself, or a death experience, or almost death experience. And you can also see outside your body things that you don't quite understand, or people that are transfigurated or have different appearance, and that strange monsters, the author writes here, strange monster, these strange figures can make people scary. And there is a specific fear that is when you are taking off. I think everyone here, or most of you, had this experience when you are lucidity taking off of the body, and then there is this like butterflies on your belly, and sometimes you get scared. Like when you, for example, it's the same for some people when the plane is landing or is taking off. There is this a little bit uncomfortable and sometimes even fear. And the one important thing is the controlling your fear, overcoming your fear. Here the author talks about facing your fear, even in small doses, like a desensibilization routine, so that fear won't stop you to do the projections. And one thing that I think is really interesting is that related to projection is that a lot of people most of people have some level of fear of death. And actually it's like a paradox that the projection is the cure, the real cure, the ultimate cure of this fear, because then you see that you don't really die after your body deactivation. So it's kind of a paradox, really. And another point that the author stresses is that a lot of people think about fear and bad experience that could happen, bad things that could happen, but they forgot about the helpers. Many of them are there helping you to get out of your body, even when you don't really see them or don't perceive them. So think about the people that want you to succeed, have projections, and are helping you to do that. That's a good point. And another point that I think is really interesting is that another way to overcome fear from projection is studying, is overcome the understood, the things that you don't understand, you don't comprehend, the unknown. So reading this book in Projectiology and other books that are related could really give you some background and some understanding of the phenomena, and will ease or even eliminate these fears. So that's a good tip also. Well, in the next chapter, we have like the inhibitory agents to lose consciential project. Actually here, Waldo Vieira brings like why people that he wants to answer the question, why people that have lucid experience, lucid projections, don't talk about it. It's mainly about that, these chapters. And here he has a lot of, he brings a lot of reasons, and I will present some here. Well, first of all, some people think, actually I was like that, I was remember when I was reading this chapter that I never talk about my previous, until Conscientiology, I have never talked about my projections or my parapsychic experience, and I related a lot with some of these reasons here. And first of all, is that I thought the first one, an experience, is that I thought that everybody had this kind of thing, and it was something natural. So I don't really consider it or give the right importance and relevance at that time. Some people could sometimes don't talk about their extra physical experience because they think that will not be useful to others, that maybe people will get hurt doing it. Well, maybe they think that people are not prepared to do it in general. And the other thing that here Waldo writes about ridicule, it's about people that don't talk because they are worried about the incredulity. People won't believe them or even think they are insane. Actually, that was my case too. When I was a teenager, I thought that people will think that I'm crazy, so it's better never talk about it. And I think a lot of people have this kind of experience. Unfortunately, they don't have like an environment that they can talk freely about their experience. Well, I think one of the main reasons is that people don't really can separate the lucid projects, although they can be really vivid, to the dreams. So sometimes they get confused. Oh, I have this really lucid dream, but then they just forget and keep going on and never talk about it. And also underestimation and overestimation. What is that? It's something like we were already saying, oh, that experience is not that important. It's not worth it to study what happened to me. And other people can say, oh, it's a really amazing thing, I'm a special person, but the others are not able to understand. So it's not really worth it to talk about it. And also, one thing that we see a lot in conscientiotherapy is related to superstition. The people that has not the conscientiology background, sometimes they are still like in a mystic kind of experience or paradigm. They think that if they talk about this experience, they will stop because they will be punished by something or somehow because they reveal this secret, and then they just don't talk about it. It's something that sometimes you see some personalities they have this kind of fear, and of course they can understand, and the projection is some natural, it's physiologic, and it's not like a special gift, and you can even evolve this capacity with techniques. So it's really freeing to them when they understand that.
Juliana, Kim has a
can I
question.
Oh, sorry, Ken.
No, that's all right.
Okay,
I could have. I know you can. I know you can't see. I could have just jumped in. I just wanted to. It's just a more common probably. I don't know if the text next to the highlighted words is from the book, or is that bits from the book, or it was just the statement about people. There was a statement there, it's something like shy people who don't share their experiences because, you know, they're not experienced or something in that. And I was actually just talking, the ridicule one, they fear the incredulity and so on. But I just a reflection, because I was just talking to someone today who'd never had an out-of-body experience, and in having that conversation, it kind of struck me that it's actually kind of difficult in a way to have a conversation, because if you've never had the experience, it's almost meaningless. You know, it's kind of like somebody telling you a dream or something that doesn't relate to your life experience. And it just struck me that it's not even so much a matter of, in this case, fearing ridicule or something, but you can tell a person, maybe I had this experience or something, but it's hard to have a dialogue much beyond that, it seems, because it's almost like we're in two different worlds, the world of people who have the experiences and the world of people who don't have the experiences, which is the kind of the motto, which I think we forgot to say at the beginning, that don't believe in anything, right? Have your own experiences. So yeah, it was just a thought.
No, many of the tests here are from the book. They are just like that, but the stressed and the words that there are in bold here, it's my marks from the test, so it will help me to point out the main points. But yeah, I understand that. You know what? Sometimes, for example, when you live like a reality that people can relate it, it's really hard. Even in the intraphysical way, you can make analogy. For example, I'm a doctor. I remember when I started to study medicine, I had so many challenging, nice, and sometimes hard experience. And I couldn't tell that no, it's not that I couldn't tell, but I when I talk to people that didn't went through this reality, they don't even get what I was talking about. You know what I mean? My doubts and everything. I really feel that they didn't really get what I'm saying. And maybe I don't know if that is exactly the point, but I think it's something like that happens to a lot of people. They don't even know how to start to understand. And then you explain, people will say that, oh, you had a nice dream, so that's okay. You know what I mean? And then and then it doesn't really help you. At some point, some people, if you insist, people will think, oh, that's strange, you know what I mean? They think that you are like not really on your right state of mind. So I think it's really hard sometimes. So that's so important. This is the space, these opportunities that we have here to talk about it. And I think it's really nice that you can talk freely about the projection, and for example, in this activity, even, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I remember when I was a child, I saw a lot of concepts, extra-physical consciousness, but I never told anyone, because I lived with a person that had mental illness, mental health problems, and he always saw. He said that he saw people that were not there, and that was really a situation that was challenging to me, because I was a child and he was ill, and I started to think, am I ill too? And because nobody, at some point I thought that everybody saw them, and then I realized that is not true. And then I started to think, okay, there is only one person that sees that, but he's crazy, you know, putting that way in my child thoughts. And maybe I'm not normal too. So that was really something that I had to think about it, but I never had the chance to talk to anyone, really. I didn't want to talk to anyone because of that. Well, harms of lucid projects. Of course, I don't want to go through all these lines here, but one thing that I think it's really important from this chapter is that some people in other books stress a lot that projection could be really harmful, and the author here stresses that is not true. That although there is a lot of data literature about that, it's pretty rare. And he even talk about that. He even wrote down that he never saw any of these circumstances here. And that's the main point, I think, about it. It's because I think we'll see next that the harm could be made by you yourself. The chances of something like possession, on another disturbance, madness, or getting sick are pretty rare or even not existent, right? And another point that I think it's important, it's no human activity is entirely free of danger. For example, I can be here and have some kind of medical problem or urgence, or I can be walking down the streets and have an accident. So bad things could, or accidents could happen everywhere when you're doing pretty much anything, everything. So there is no need to stigmatize the projection because of that, you know. So the author, the Waldo Vieira, says that it's exaggerated, and he even say that actually he thinks that some people that do that have the intention of withholding information for the general public, a general population. And the thing that I think is more important, that he says, the only real harms, dangerous obstacles are ignorance, fear, doubt, passion in the sense of getting overwhelmed by the emotions and not think clearly. Illicit plans, for example, if you are trying to evolve or develop your projectability to do something bad with other person, or even a spy, for example, a spying person, or get inside another people's houses without their consent, or something like that, even worse things, right? So that's will have that this kind of conduct will have bad consequences to you because of your bad intentions. And also when you are ignorant or have a lot of fear, the experience probably won't exist or won't be a good one, right? It will be like complicated. So again, the information is a critical point here. Well, here the author still stresses some people that could have difficulties or a bad experience when they project themselves. For example, the imprudence here is related mainly with the people that have not much, for example, much knowledge, or they are doing it against the physiology of the body. And it's really something that happens in their lives in general, in projectio also. The people that have fears, especially people that have fears of the unknown, right? And here again, we talk about the unsatisfied, especially in the sense of sexuality. And here the author in this chapter details a lot more if you want to study later about that. Also, there is a chapter in Projectiology that talks about vampirism, interconsciential vampirism, and this personality of the vampire, the energy vampire. So it's pretty interesting. That's in another chapter that we went through already, I think. And so the person, if she has sexual problems, maybe that will express in the extra-physical reality too, and we will attract, she or he will attract people that have the same problems somehow, projection, even if they are projected more, but more common extra-physical consciousness. So that will create sometimes an environment of vampirism and not really help for the projector. Oh, sorry, here I have a problem. I think you can read, but generally the person that is ill, especially if it's a really severe disease, in more like maybe in a terminal, sometimes in a terminal state, maybe it's not the ideal situation to get a projection, and maybe it would be better be in peace. Although in the next chapters we'll be talking about that too, the illness and the projection, and that in some cases the projection in that kind of situation will help the people, will help the person to get energies and feel better and have like maybe the latest moments of lucidity in this dimension, but we'll be talking more about that too. Well, about now we'll be talking about lucid projection and accidents. What is the main idea here? It's sometimes you get in some kind of accident or some kind of circumstance that will cause a disconnection of the bodies, the holosoma, and that could be emotional stress, very severe emotional stress, or even a violent accident like hitting your neck, or in a car accident, something that will change you abruptly, and that could cause the sudden projection of the human body. About the real accident, real physical accident, we should pay attention, especially in the ones that there are encephalic lesions like head trauma, because that could cause more easily cause this coincidence and the projection, partial or totally projection of the conscience and the psychosoma. Other ones that I stressed here, there are a lot, but I thought that what interesting, like an electrical discharge. There are a lot of people that have electrical discharge and say that they see themselves floating above their bodies for a few seconds or a little time. Explosions when the physical impact can just disconnect the bodies of the consciousness. And of course, extreme situations of violence, for example, torture, that could be a situation that people can leave their body. And also, in sometimes, I think everyone heard about people that had an accident or even a trauma like a surgery, not exactly an accident, that they see themselves outside their body and they can even inspect the harm or the situation that they are living. They can see the wounds and things like that, or even see themselves getting help. Also, there is a thing that some head trauma or trauma in general, especially specifically the head trauma, could cause the start of seriated lucid projections. Even people that doesn't have it before, that could cause it because of some change in their psychosoma. Here we can really discuss that. Could be the disconnection, forced disconnection of some extraphysical consciousness. Could be when there is a change in the hollow chakra and the chakras. Could be many reasons. I think that's an open topic for research, really. And we'll be talking more about the infancy, the childhoodness, but there is the classic trauma. It's not exactly an accident many times, but the traumas in the head during the childbirth that are notorious related with the involvement of parapsychism and projectability. Well, when you talk about children and projection, the first thing is that the concept of mini projector or child projector is a child that could have lucid extraphysical experience. Sometimes that's a signal that this consciousness has this ability, and she could be an advanced projector. Usually the advanced projectors start their experience early in life. And one thing that is difficult is because sometimes the projection, although they can be lucid, the interpretation can be harmed by the difficulty of the child to understand what is happening. So sometimes it's mixed with fantasies and more like in a symbolic way. And before 7 years old, usually people understand that they accept the parapsychic experience being normal. We already talk about that. We usually think, oh, everybody's like that. Everybody's seeing that everybody's feeling that. So they think it's more normal. And also there is important information that sometimes you see people outside the body that look like children, like look like a child, but is actually not. I mean, of course, the consciousness doesn't have age itself. It's more like an appearance. But what I mean is sometimes, even for interexistential purpose, this consciousness is transfigured in a child appearance to help others, or could be that situation, right? Or could be a child projected too. One thing that the Waldo Vieira writes in this chapter that I think is really interesting is that it's a really nice scenario, I thought. It's like you being like parents that have lucid projection. If you have a parent that have a lucid projection, you can stimulate your child, your children to do the same, and even have like extraphysical trips together. That is a pretty interesting thing to do. I think it was a really nice idea. And about the humans now, well, one thing that really caught my attention this chapter is that, first of all, you can see animals or subhumans. They are from this planet and from astrophysical, or even, I don't know, even related to other planets maybe, but are not clearly from this dimension. They could be, they could help in assistential tasks too. They can also be related to their owners. I think one of my most clear projections that I had when I was a child was related to a dog. We moved it and we were not able to keep the dog. And that was terrible to me. And I remember that I got out the body and visited the dog. And the thing that I thought that was really amazing, that the Waldo right down here in this chapter too, and many times the dog sees you, the animal sees you, and the astrophysical, they react and they recognize you. And so it's really interesting. It's an interesting experience. And well, here we have in this chapter a proposition to understand better in a more in a projection, and by the projection view, the relationships and interpersonal units. I thought that was really interesting and unique, but also challenging to understand to comprehend all this chapter, because there are a lot of classifications. I hope that I will be able to bring some information to you. Basically, relationships could be anything. Of course, you have marriages and more relationships related to sexual affective unions. But nowadays there are a lot of kinds of relationships, but all of them, there is some kind of connection related to confidence, concessions, and mutual interest. The author here, he stresses these kind of interests, or the things that connect people. He proposed here that there are 4 basic appeals: to sexual and to consensual, more than consensual, like a consensual, really consciousness appeal. So if you have 4 kinds and four possibilities of situation. For example, I'm in a relationship with someone, and we have a reciprocal, a dual sexual appeal. Both of us are interested in this relationship in the sexual aspect, but that could be unilateral too, when it's just one person that is interested in that way. And in the consensual appeal is the same. We can be both consensually connected, or that could be unilateral, or just by one side too. And based on that, he proposes like 80, I think it's 80 levels of different affinities in people and relationships. For example, the stable one, that people are together, and usually this kind of couple, they are a long time together, and they have basically sexual and consensual appeals, both of them. So they have they are both connected in a sexual way and also in a consensual way. And then we start to move down this classification when something is always lacking. For example, in the sister, here they call it sister kind of relationship, there is just one partner that is related with the sexual appeal, But both of them, they are reciprocal about the consciential appeal. That's also a good kind of relationship that is stable, lasts a long time. And then from then, the lacks of interesting, they are growing. For example, in disconnected, they have this reciprocal sexual appeal, but the consensual appeal is missing, at least from one side. And that keeps going.
Juliana.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, just want to bring up the time. So we have just a few minutes until we need to switch over to
Oh, sorry.
Isabelle. No,
Sorry,
that's okay. Thank you.
I was checking the time, but I think that maybe I got it wrong. Okay. So
Thanks, Juliana.
We had it was sort of half an hour each, and yeah, so we've been 45 minutes now, so maybe another few minutes to wrap up, and then Isabelle can have another, her half an hour.
okay, so please let me know when it's over. I'll keep going so far. In lucid projection childbirth, I think the most important thing here is like the cases of lucid projection during the childbirth, about maybe because of the pain or the stress of the situation. There are a lot of reports of self-bilocation also. And in regard of the child, there could happen a lot of problems or situations that can enhance or make it easier to develop the parapsychism or the projectability. For example, as you already told, the head trauma, the cord around the neck, and things that can bring hypoxemia, for example, or fetal suffering. About the erection, pretty much the author says that erection, it's a physiological thing, both for men or women, and I mean, regarding the clitoris here, and could be related to projection, or even runs totally separated. And sometimes when you have the erection, that can interrupt or harm the projection, can come back of the body. And about the blindness, the important thing that I see is that the blind people that born blind, that can project themselves and see things as with their extraphysical eyes, is a kind of a confirmation about the existence of the projected itself. So I think that's a pretty interesting chapter too. And about the pain, the main thing is that critical situations of pain, like we see already, like, for example, torture, or even illnesses that involve with a lot of pain, there is this tendency to disconnect of the body, to escape from the body, and then you can have the projection. About the heart rate, basically here the author stressed the fact that bradycardia, or the low rate, is more, it's a situation that can help getting out of the body, although he doesn't recommend you do some kind of manipulation in that sense. It's more, it's something that you can get relaxing in controlling your breath, your respiration. And about illnesses, also people here with severe or important illnesses, sometimes that interferes in their perception, and they can have projections, as we told before. These projections sometimes, most of the times, they don't have the lucidity of what's happening, but when they have it, sometimes it's pretty good, because it calms down and help people to pass away in a more healthy way. I think it's pretty much that. I'm sorry that I missed the time.
That's okay, Juliana. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? so far? If not, we can move to Isabelle's presentation.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity for everyone from Isaacs. It's great to be here. I'm going to share my slide. And feel free to interrupt me anytime, okay? Because I don't see all of you. So we can continue now from the chapter 461. It's a relation between lucid projection and psychopathology. So lucid projection is a natural phenomenon. It doesn't come directly from mental disorders, and it should be excluded from the study of psychopathology. So lucid projection, it's different from temporary insanity, a brain dysfunction, or a neurotic privation. Lucid projection can also happen with patients who suffer from mental disorders, but this doesn't mean that it's the same thing. So someone with some mental illness, they can, of course, leave the body because it's a physiological condition, right? So this can happen to anyone. And lucid projection doesn't cause any harmful physiological effects to the person. For example, the aura. The aura in lucid projection is positive and very different from the aura that we have in epilepsy or in the migraine. It's also much more common for people to have psychopathy than lucid projection, right? Much less people has the lucid projection. Lucid projection ends the fear of death. It also helps the person to accept an afterlife. And it gives a deep sense of physical and interconsciential fulfillment to the person. Some projectors, they began taking powerful narcotics after they searched for the help of doctors to understand the experiences they were having. These drugs, they were wrongly prescribed to them, and they can cause harm that is irreversible to their physical and mental health. There are some real phenomena related to lucid projection which are similar to a psychopathological experience. Some examples are the bradykinesia, elongation, panoramic vision, partial projection, projective déjà vu, and so on. So in summary, lucid projection doesn't have any negative effects on the person. And this is why it should not be confused with a psychopathology. The relation of lucid projection, surgery, and anesthetics. So the anesthesia causes the physical torpidity or the numbness in the area where it's applied during a surgery, right? And we know that in projectiology, that physical torpidity is the first sign of this coincidence of the vehicles of manifestation of the consciousness. This coincidence can lead to lucid projection. Since 1844, the anesthetics made the body pass into unconsciousness. They raised the level of carbon dioxide in the body, and as a result, they induced the consciousness to produce forced lucid projections. When we are under anesthesia, high levels of carbon dioxide, they are a risk to the person. So today, when the anesthetics are applied, a greater amount of oxygen is kept at 100%. Still, general anesthesia is a big risk in operations, and the countless near-death experiences that happen during surgeries. The surgeons in general, usually they judge the experiences of the patients when these patients report that they were out of body and that they could see the surgery room or the surroundings. The surgeons usually they don't know and they don't care about the parapsychic phenomena. They say that these experiences are just hallucinations that were caused by the anesthetics during the general anesthesia. But the lucid projection that experienced by the patient can many times be confirmed by the testimonies of the medical personnel. So one situation that is less common but can also happen is when surgeons and nurses report that they saw the exteriorization of the psychosome of their patients, sometimes on the top of the operating table. They can even describe the extraphysical body of the person, the face involved in a fog, or even see the silver cord of the person projected. The takeoff of the psychosome of the patient under general anesthesia is usually abrupt, sudden, in a spiral or in a zigzag manner. When in the state of deep unconsciousness caused by the anesthesia, the person is forced to leave the body. So in this case, the person is in a much deeper state of unconsciousness than that one of the natural sleep or any type of trance state. Lucid projections that are produced under general anesthesia are usually more impressive and dramatic experience than the projections that happen naturally during the sleep. The relation of lucid projection and parasurgery. So the definition that is in the Projectiology of parasurgery is that parasurgery is the branch of paramedicine and the subdiscipline of conscientiology that treats infirmities and accidents, either totally or in part, by manual operational procedures and methods of parapsychic origin. So in recent decades, the international news has reported in the growing number of people that go in this undergoing these clandestine surgeries. In the surgeries, healers, we can call like this, who they don't have any medical training, they introduce dangerous tools into the vital organs of the patients. And this is done without any conventional asepsis and without causing infection, or without conventional anesthesia and without causing any pain or bleeding to the patient. These unusual surgeries, they have been included in the study of the alternative therapies or the so-called parallel medicine. The medical and scientific communities, they have a lot of hostility toward this type of operations. These surgeries have been the object of criticism and controversy leads to misinformation. But one thing is a fact that the great popularity of these surgeries is growing every day and is always in evidence in the media, on the TV, or in the internet. So any unbiased researcher who compares and discusses the methods used by these parasurgeons will conclude that, in fact, many of these parasurgeries, they are real. Scientific investigation begins by asking the right questions, right? This phenomenon of parasurgery can be explained this way. The immanent energy is transformed into consciential energy and then is transmitted by the consciousness to the patient. There is a hypothesis that in parasurgeries, there may be a discoincidence of the parasurgeon's vehicles of manifestation. So here we have 11 characteristics of the real parasurgeons. One, the parasurgeon is responsible for everything that happens in the surgeries and also for the consequences in case there are consequences. Number two, although there are some parasurgeons who are also physicians, the parasurgeon in general, they are not legally qualified to practice medicine or to perform a surgery. So they practice outside of law. Number three, the real parasurgeon doesn't get any material benefit from his parapsychic skills. And of course, despite the charlatans. Number four, he's the central personality of the parasurgery. Without the parasurgeon, there is no procedure. It means that he's indispensable. Number five, he doesn't have a backup team for the preoperative or for the asepsis, anesthesia, and neither have technical assistance during and after the parasurgery. Number six, only the parasurgeon can use the equipment and make the decisions during the parasurgery. Number seven, in general, the parasurgeon doesn't have a first or second assistant to help him during the surgeries or to exchange ideas or to give opinions. Number eight, there is no one to substitute the parasurgeon in case it is needed, right? And number nine, there aren't any medical meetings where the parasurgeon can assign responsibilities, like usually happens with normal surgeries. Number 10, he doesn't have the resources needed to perform a preoperative evaluation. It means that he doesn't ask for any laboratory test results to determine the risks that are involved in that surgery. And number 11, the parasurgeon can't be classified according to conventional specialties in the same way as regular physicians. The relational lucid
can
projection. Yes, yes,
Isabel, just
yes.
on the parasurgeon thing, I just, and I don't know, I haven't read that chapter now, so I don't know whether Waldo comments on it, but I think what we now know about Jean de Deus also means it sort of needs an addendum or something, right? That parasurgery and cosmoethics don't necessarily come hand in hand. You can have the capacity to create these, do what probably were genuine parasurgeries while not being cosmoethical person. I think that's quite an interesting and important case.
Yes, for sure, Kim. And João de Deus, John of God, is one of these people that contribute to this controversy that I was mentioning before, right? And it's actually quite confusing. I have been there in Abadiânia. I'm from Brasilia, so I have been there twice in my life for different reasons, even a student from the Brasilia University. And you can see that something really happened there, but there is this other anti-cosmoethical side that you were mentioning that makes people confused. And this, I guess, this is why there is no credibility to it many times, but you're right.
And I mean, the same applies to everything, really. Like all of these, I mean, there is lucid projectors who use their projective ability for anti-cosmoethical purposes. It's like none of these things really are linked to cosmoethics.
This is why to evolve, the lucid projection is a tool, but we have to study conscientiology, we have to study cosmoethics, universalism, all these subjects also, right? Because we have been doing it wrong already for many thousands of years. So lucid projections and the mutilated person. Many people have a member amputated, and this need for amputation happens because of a trauma caused to a member of the person. So it could be an automobile or work-related accident, or it can even happen in a battlefield. The intention is to guarantee the survival of the organism. Mutilation normally increases the process of physical restriction, and this is a problem, which keeps the consciousness trapped within the body. We can list here 7 correlated facts between lucid projection and the amputee. Number 1, the general experiences of lucid projectors. So when veteran projectors project in the presence of an intraphysical consciousness who has recently had a member amputated, they see the person physically intact as a whole, as if the person still has the whole member. Number 2, the experiences of lucid amputee projectors. So when amputee projectors see themselves projected in the extraphysical dimension, they clearly perceive the totality of their own mutilated member. It can be an arm or a leg or whatever. So number 3, the experiences of clairvoyant mediums. Many clairvoyant mediums, they claim that they can see the phantom member of the recently amputated person while in the ordinary waking state. Number 4, the phantom limb. Many amputees, they complain to their doctors about how strongly they still feel this missing limb. This is especially true during the healing period after the surgery. Number 5, we have a relationship here between 2 phenomena, right? We can connect here 2 related phenomena. The more intense a recently amputee's phantom pains are, the more visible the amputated part of the body will be. Number 6, Kirlian photographs. So Dr. Vieira mentions in the book one experiment with Kirlian photographs. In this experiment, the leaves from a plant had suffered the amputation of a part. These leaves appear in the Kirlian photograph with the energetic design still whole, with the exact form of the cut segment. And there is a hypothesis that this phantom leaf could be created when the leaf is pressed by a rubber roll against the film before the amputation. So this can create a moisture, like a humidity in the film. So what is imprinted in the Kirlia photograph is this humidity mark, not a phantom member. So far, it has not been possible to replicate this phantom effect in laboratory in order to reach an agreement among the researchers. And number 7, brain problems. There have been cases of people who have lost a part of their brain without any visible harmful effects on their mental health. And this supports this theory that there is an extraphysical vehicle for consciousness. The relation of lucid projection and the hemiplegic. So hemiplegic is a person who suffers from paralysis of one side of the body. Common hemiplegia affects at the same time the members of half of the body and half of the face of the same side of the body. Some hemiplegics, they perceive and even see next to them on the paralyzed side a portion of the psychosoma. And this hemiplegic, they claim that this portion has full sensation that they lack in physical movement because of the paralysis. So only the partial projection from the body or the psychosoma in this case can explain this event, right? Hemiplegics experience a phenomena similar to amputees and the blind people who can see in the extraphysical. And this can be explained by the existence of the psychosoma. The relation of lucid projection and drugs. So the definition of drug that is in the book, Projectiology, is projective drug medication used in order to temporarily alter the state of intraphysical consciousness through systematic practice intended to modify the chemistry of the human body and which may be considered projectogenic by some researchers. So for thousands of years, people in many societies, they have used substances that change awareness, lucidity, and the elaboration of thought. The issue with drugs is that their effects are always unpredictable. So they can create either pleasant or terrible experiences for the person using it. And drugs can lead to endless nightmares. At a high dose, any hallucinogen can be deadly. Hallucinogens, they are not addictive. It means that they don't cause physiological dependency. But some people become psychologically dependent on drugs. In the book Projectiology, Dr. Vieira released 4 basic forms of drugs that can be harmful or harmless to the body. So some examples of these drugs that are more known to everyone, right? Some examples are in the cigarette form, marijuana. In the seeds forms will be the ayahuasca or the poppy seed that makes the opium and the heroin. In the chewable form, the Amanita muscaria or magic mushroom. And in synthetics form, the LSD or lysergic acid diethylamide. These drugs are used for many purposes. They can be used for divining purposes, to discover lost, hidden, or stolen objects, in order to find lost or dead persons, and even in mini parasurgeries. Lucid projection produced by the intoxication with drugs, they are always mixed with hallucinations. This happens because of the psychoactive properties in the drug. And this is why it's not recommended for producing a reliable lucid projection. Most medications, they affect our altered state of consciousness, including the sleep, dreams, and lucid projections. So in summary, the fewer medications that are used in any area, the better. Here we have a comparison between the drugs and hypnosis. So drugs and hypnosis are methods prescribed by many enthusiasts for inducing lucid projections, as well as suggestion, concentration, and other special exercises. This is why it is valid here to make a comparison between them both, the drugs and hypnosis. In the field of parapsychology and in the area of projectiology, drugs are normally contraindicated. This is because they present negative physical aspects, almost all of them which are related to the physical body, and negative extraphysical aspects, which are related to the projected consciousness. So the negative physical aspects that drugs cause in the body is the time required for a drug to take effect, the undesirable side effect of using a drug, the time needed for the person to rest, where the body detoxifies from residues of the drug, unpleasant, unpredictable, and delayed effects of drug use. Now the negative extraphysical aspects. Reduced clarity of the extraphysical perception, interference from hallucinations and oniric images, and reduced performance of the consciousness regarding the later recall of the experience. The advantages of heterohypnosis are far superior because it can have almost immediate results to the person. It has no side effects. And when it's induced by a responsible professional, it has no secondary effects on the person. And also the hypnotized person always feels much better after the hypnotic trance. So the ideal is that the person avoids using drugs as well as hypnosis as far as possible. So in terms of evolution, we should always keep a maximum level of the natural lucidity, this in any dimension. The relation of lucid projection and psychological contagion. So the definition of psychological contagion is the transmission of behavior from one person to another through mental influence, instinct of imitation, or direct psychological contact. The ordinary people, they don't think independently for themselves because their minds become integrated into the collective mind of the group that they belong to. So some forms of psychological contagion, they are well known to some professionals. For example, if someone yawns or sneezes or laughs or cries in a room full of people, so this behavior is transferred in a reflexive way to other people. And this behavior, it can even be seen in animals. So for example, with a horse, if a horse starts shaking the head, soon it will be copied by the other horses around it, this behavior. Based on this idea that lucid projection can be induced through suggestion, we can conclude that lucid projection can be transmitted through psychological contagion from one person to another. In the field of projectiology, psychological contagion can be seen, for example, when someone shares a personal projective experience with the group. So as a result, one of the people listening to it can have his or her first lucid projection spontaneously during the night when they go back to home to sleep. Of course, this is someone who has a greater potential for having lucid projection. From what we mentioned before, we can make then 4 inferences. Number 1, psychological contagion induces the production of spontaneous lucid projection without the use of any technique. Psychological contagion highlights how a minority of people have a greater predisposition to produce lucid projection compared to the average of the population. Number 3, the veteran lucid projector is a center of irradiation who can transmit this contagion at high intensity. And number 4, centers of projectiological studies can form a real positive projectiogenic current in certain areas. Some ideas that were coming to me while reading this chapter is how much, for example, in the case of conscientiocentric institutions that study lucid projection, how much of this probability of having this projection is from this psychological contagion, or it can be from the holocene of the place that they are, can have some influence to the person, or even the technique of the mind saturation with the information, because they're there are books about it and people making lecture, teaching, talking about it all the time. So I think it will be a little difficult to discern which one will be psychological contagion or holocene. Okay, if anyone has any other insight, please, you can share here. The relation of lucid projected and humor. Common humor comes from the emotional body, including the black humor, the anti-cosmoetic or human of the person projected in the extraphysical dimension. This is why it can be found in the paratroposphere or in less involved extraphysical dimensions. And when we talk about extraphysical good humor, we have two ideas here. So on the one hand, it puts an end to any impulse of austerity, severity, that sometimes the repressive mysticism causes in the behavior of the majority of the people, what we call the unthinking mass. On the other hand, this shows the needs for the person to assume a position of natural balance and serenity. And it means they have to calm their emotions, okay? But without being radical also, otherwise we fall to the other side. So the humor from the mental soma, it reaches levels of enjoyment that we are not used to in our daily life. We are not used to it. So to achieve the pure manifestations of the mental soma, the person needs to behave without deep or irrational behaviors, emotions. We are not there yet, right? So until then, the good humor of fraternity is the best option in any circumstance. The relation of lucid projection and yoga. The practice of some of the more than 144 types of yoga can result in many phenomena, including altered state of consciousness, which allow the person to consciously reach the extraphysical dimension. Videha is a Sanskrit word which literally means one which has no body and corresponds to the spontaneous lucid projector. The control of the energy, pranayama, or science of breathing, which is a yoga technique, is one of the basic methods for inducing the person to leave the body. And many types of yoga are directly related to projectiology. For example, the Hatha yoga, mantra yoga, Raja yoga, or the mental discipline, Samadhi yoga, which enables the achievement of cosmic consciousness. We can highlight some examples of psychic abilities of yoga that are related to the projectiology. For example, serenity, which is indispensable to the projected consciousness that wants to evolve. To see and hear distant events, as they say in yoga, which is the traveling clairvoyance. Or to reach the speed of thought, which is the volitation. Or as in yoga, they say to acquire the knowledge of the past, which is the self-retrocognition. Or to read the thoughts of others, which is the telepathy. Another connection between lucid projection and yoga is the study of the chakras, as well as the kundalini, which is the energy of the sex chakra, right? The relation of lucid projection in total institutions. So the definition of total institution is the place of residence and work where a large number of individuals in a similar condition and separated from the greater society lead a formally administrated closed life for a considerable period of time. So there are 5 categories of total institutions. These are the people who are incapable and harmless, like the homes for the blind people, the elderly, the orphans. Those who are incapable of caring for themselves and who also threaten society, although unintentionally. This is the case for the hospitals for the mentally ill or sanitariums for people with certain diseases. We have also the protection of the community against people who are intentionally dangerous. These are the prisons and the concentration camps, for example. Number 4, the organization of specific tasks like headquarters, ships, boarding schools, and work camps. And number 5, the refuge from human life and for religious instruction. These are the convents, the abbeys, and the monasteries. So cases of lucid projections with people confined in total institutions, they are well known because these institutions, they are harmful to the person, especially this involuntary imprisonment. This is the case of prisons, prison of war camps, and hospitals for the people who are mentally ill. The restraint of a prison and the dust in the environment and the air polluted and without oxygen in the cell, it causes a decrease in the amount of oxygen inhaled by the prisoner. This can result in the production of lucid projection through the technique of increasing the carbon dioxide in the body. So in these situations, the extraphysical world literally serves as a defense mechanism or a means of escape for these people confined in the total institution. The assistance of helpers provided to these people is a common type of assisted consciential projection. The assistance to this projection, it aims to prevent the despair of the suicide and homicide of the prisoners. When these prisoners they are released from prison, usually it starts a period of permanent projective recess. The relation of lucid projection and personal movement. Sometimes movement that is rapid, repeated, or uncommon can cause the coincidence between the psychosoma and the physical body. And this can trigger a lucid or even non-lucid projection. As examples of personal movement, we have the person seated in a swivel chair, the dervish in his spinning dance, or the shaman with frenetic movements, or even an ordinary runner jogging, for example. People can have lucid projections while their body continues to perform complex tasks. This could be while driving a vehicle in movement, when someone is walking, when an author is writing a book, the marathoner is running, or when the singer is singing a song, and so on. So most projective experiences of a person while driving a vehicle, for example, they are very brief. Apparently, there is no accidents in this case because of a subprogram in the mental computer or the assistance of a helper attending to the person in these brief projections. When someone breaks a car, for example, the body suffers a sudden stop. In this case, the psychosoma can continue to be in movement for a short moment. The main cause of this phenomena seems to be a lack of oxygen in the brain with a prevalence of carbon dioxide caused by a decrease in breathing frequency. This can happen in other situations too, like in anesthesia, suffocation, drowning, or even landslides. These facts could also be related to the resonant frequency of the psychosoma when it's in coincidence inside the physical body, because of the external vibration of the engine of the vehicle, right? This reminds me a case, there is a known case that I have learned in projectiology courses about the Brazilian F1 racer Ayrton Senna in the Monaco 1988. He had this experience in that run that they make before the race start, like the warming up, I think. He had this experience that he could see himself like driving the car. He felt like he was in a tunnel. I didn't find many things about this in English, but in the website of Ayrton Senna, there is even a video where he relates this, let's say, this paranormal experience that he had. So it's very interesting. And lucid projections and sports. So we know that keeping a physical and mental hygiene is very important for the life of any person, right? And based on this, we can say that the regular practice of any sport or physical exercise can only help the development of the lucid projector because it keeps the person in good health. It is important to emphasize that the advantage of sports like swimming, long distance running, the hatha yoga that we talked about before, and the process of the body of the lucid projector. So sport is a powerful inducer of altered states of consciousness that has no pathological connotation to the person. This is because physical activities, they stimulate and they intensify our energies. There are records of runners who saw themselves consciously out of body during long distance runs. These runs require keeping harmonic movements and a constant speed. Physical exercises, even the simple ones that we do every day on a regular basis, they can help shape our body and keep it detoxified. Physical exercises, they eliminate the many physiological and mental symptoms that they block the production of lucid projections. Like, for example, intestinal constipation, headaches, or even dizziness. And this chapter, we can say that there is some relation with the previous one of the personal movement, right? If you have anyone want to comment anything or have any question. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you, Juliana. So now we will break out into smaller groups and have a discussion, and we will turn the recording off. So feel free to share your experiences or ask any questions you might have about the chapters. Okay, so just start the rooms.
I mean, I don't know if we have time for sorry, I don't know if we have time for this, but one topic that struck me with I mean, there's a few topics, but one of them that I was thinking that I feel is kind of addressed maybe in a somewhat a biased, or I think there's certain preconceptions or maybe not full appreciation of the use of projectiogenic drugs. Like I feel like the way, you know, Waldo talks about the use of drugs is perhaps like if somebody randomly, you know, without a context just tries LSD or ayahuasca or something, or like a lot of the white, you know, a lot of Europeans and you know, non-Indigenous people going to America and taking ayahuasca and having these trips. But because if you look at the actual cultural use of a lot of these drugs, whether it's ayahuasca or iboga in Africa or you know, psilocybin mushrooms, they're actually in a controlled environment, very predictable. Like people have the same experiences over and over, the same environments, the same consciexes, and they can create mental somatic projections and kind of life vision. In iboga, for example, people often have a panoramic life vision and sort of review and do some major recycling. That because, you know, people talk about the experience of kind of seeing how their actions impact on other people, the kind of thing that we talk about happens at the near-death experience or something like that, right? And so, like, they're not like drugs you take and you just have like an out-of-body. You know, you can't really compare the out-of-body experience that you can have through a technique is very different compared to what they can produce. And I mean, I'm not an advocate for the drugs. Like, I feel they have to be taken very warily. And, you know, I think there's definitely negative long-term effects of overusing them. But I just think there's a more nuanced conversation to be had about it than drugs bad, without drugs is good. You know, like it's sort of a bit more complex.
I think this is very interesting because this for me was the most difficult chapter to work on because it's very deep. Waldo goes through many technical terms, and there is much. There's a lot more in this chapter that I couldn't put in the presentation because I have to cut a lot of things. But he talks about alcohol, barbiturics, you know, the people taking sleeping drugs that disturb the cycles of sleep, for example. But he tells about this prediction, exactly what you're saying, that some people, for example, were taking LSD, the people with metastatic diseases, when they're in terminal ill, they are like, there is nothing else that they can do. So they're prescribed an LSD, for example, that they have a relief from the pain that they are suffering. They can go out of body, they can feel much better. So this is very debatable what you're saying, because if the person feels better, are you going to let the person be suffering there? But the point that Waldo always brings in the chapter is that we should always try to do the things by our own will, right? Because drugs, in any case, it's a crutch. You want to say something, Lysis? I thought that you raised your hand.
No, I
want to say something. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's just because I work with terminal patients, and when we don't use it, LSD or something like that, there is no need to suffering. Of course, there is a suffering inherent to situation, even a psychological suffering of dying for some people. But there are a lot of misinformation about that. A lot of people think that, for example, marijuana treats cancer. That's not true. You use in certain circumstances about pain, chronic pain, especially epilepsy and seizures. And what I think is that sometimes people pick some specific research that was many times limited and try to apply to, oh, you know what, why you don't do that and this and that. I don't think it's like that. For example, LSD, marijuana, ayahuasca could have long permanent damage and things. And I think it's lack of intelligence, really. There are a lot of things that can cause, can facilitate projection. For example, if I hit my head, the problem will happen. But it's the cost benefit of that. For example, I had recently a person that took for the first time marijuana and had a psychotic attack, you know, and that's described. So why put you through that? And it's also something that you're not evolving yourself. So in the next lab, you'll be doing the same. And also I want to, I question like the quality of these projections, because they are all related to a ritual, a mystic kind of group. That will be your experience or experience that are related, or memories that are related with this group, you know. So I think that of course, what I think is not maybe important, but I want to bring these data, that because nowadays there are a lot of countries that are working with like making legal marijuana and this and that. Of course, we don't have time, or is not the environment here to discuss that, and even the use in the medicine field. But what I think is that there is a lot of misinformation, as I told, related to that. There you are treating like cancer with marijuana. There is a salvation of the patient and things like that, and that's not true, really. And we need to study more about that and see when it's really indicated. And because there are a lot of people that are using this kind of argument to justify their personal use or something like that, you know, and it's different.
Yeah, well, I knew that we couldn't, I mean, it's a topic that we could unpack lots of elements from, and we are right out of time now. But I do want to just, we always, I know Isabel and Juliana, I don't think you've been here before, right? We always tend to give a projective technique at the end, which we encourage people to apply in the next month, to stay with the holothosene and of course to experience, right? And I actually am just curious, I know we sort of out of time, but I'm just curious, those of you who do come to the sessions regularly, do you, just a quick sign of hand, who ever applies the techniques that we talk about? Okay, that's about half. That's good. We'll keep going. So the technique today is disappeared there. Chapter 232 in Projectiology on page 483, the projective mental saturation technique. I feel today that everything we talked about really speaks to that, right? It's about really saturating our mind and our intention and our attention, everything with the idea of the projection of consciousness, stopping throughout the day regularly, reflecting on it. Maybe even while you're out and about, you're in the shops, and you can start thinking about what it would be like if I was projected here. I could fly through these shelves, I could fly out that door or out that wall. Connect with it that way. Read projective accounts. So many good books these days with projections. Read your own journal of your own projections before going to sleep. Anyway, you can read the chapter. I encourage you to do that, today or tomorrow, just so it's in your mind for the next month. and connect with people. I think that's another good part, you know, in the group. There's some good Facebook groups where people share projections a lot, just to saturate our mind, and maybe we'll have some projections to talk about next month. I don't know, Michiko or Magali, if you want to start. I'm not sure when the next session is. Third Saturday in January, I guess.
Yep, 21st of January. That's right, Kim.
Okay. All right.
So
Lovely.
hopefully we'll see you all there. Thank you so much, Juliana, Isabel. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next month. Have a
Yeah.
happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank
Wishing
you.
you
too.
all some great projections for Christmas.
Yep.
Thank you. Isabella and
Thank you.
Juliana, if you can stay, just stay, please. We are going to have a meeting before.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah,